let's get started. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our Get Ready for National Gear Up Week, part of NCEP's 2013 webinar series. My name is Daniel Bremer, and I'm the Associate Director for Government Relations at the National Council for Community and Education Partnerships, also known as NCEP. As you may know, NCEP serves as a national technical assistance provider as designated by the U.S. Department of Education and the principal advocate of the Gear Up program in Washington, D.C. Before we start, I'd just like to go over some quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on NCEP's YouTube channel early next week. You will receive an email from us with a link to the recording once it is online. All attendees have been muted to improve the webinar's performance and to avoid unnecessary audio feedback. We built in some time for questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to send them in as they arise during the question and answer, using the question and answer module. Please note that this is different from the chat feature and helps us track your questions to make sure that we answer them. If you're having trouble hearing or viewing the slides, please contact GoToMeeting directly by navigating to the Help menu in your application. If you plan to tweet today's event, we encourage you to use hashtags GearUpWeek, GearUp, one single word, or GearUpWorks. And please don't forget to mention @partnerships. Okay. So let's continue. I'd like to introduce to you our guest speaker today, Sean Holohan from England Consulting. He will be sharing some ideas and inspiration to get us on our way to start planning for 2013 National Gear Up Week. Sean Holohan is a strategist at England Consulting, and his background and expertise comprise years of policy, political, and government relations experience. After working on Senate, gubernatorial, and congressional campaigns, Sean went to work in the Virginia General Assembly for 5 years, ending as Chief of Staff in the Virginia State Senate. His experience as an account executive at a political mail firm and as a communications and advocacy director at a regional nonprofit informs his spot-on strategic work with political and policy clients. Campaigns and Elections magazine has also named him one of Virginia's most influential players in the state. Sean, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great, thanks for having me.
This is what today's webinar agenda looks like. We'll be going over the date of Gear Up Week. We'll also be going over some of the national goals and objectives that we want to meet with this year's celebrations, because it's really important that you understand that we all kind of pitch in and understand the importance of these celebrations. Sean will then share some ideas and inspiration to get you going, and then we will kick you off with some questions to start with the planning process. This will be followed by some ways that NCEP wants to and can support you on your way to a successful National Gear Up Week event. And then we'll just have a question and answer session. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So National Gear Up Week, as you all know, will take place September 23rd through the 27th. It's late enough in September so that you have enough time when you come back to school to get all your ducks lined up. And it's not too late to intervene or to be part of the very important appropriations process that kicks off around that time. So this now is the perfect time to start thinking and planning to join these, as you know, nationwide celebrations. Our national goal we have 3 national goals this year. For National Gear Up Week. The first one is to get as much media attention as possible, traditional or social. Getting the media involved helps us increase Gear Up's awareness outside of our community and our usual circles. It's very important to get more outsiders to learn about Gear Up so that they can support our work, be it through advocacy, matching contributions, increased funding, etc. Our second goal is to get as many members of Congress involved as possible. This should be your senators and your representatives in the House of Representatives. It should be Republicans or Democrats, and it should be our friends and our perceived foes. National Gear Up Week is truly a great opportunity to get your members involved. First of all, to recognize their support, even if they're, not that guy that comes out to bat for us all. And to make them feel proud of the work that is taking place in their districts with the federal and community dollars that are being invested in Gear Up. Our third and most important goal is to recognize the hard work you, your staff, your parents, your volunteers, your partners, and your students are putting into Gear Up to make it so successful. National Gear Up Week is about remembering that you are not alone in the work that you do locally and in your state, and that you belong to a huge network of committed professionals that are working really hard to make sure our most vulnerable students get an equal shot at a successful life. Gear Up Week is about celebrating our collective and individual successes as a national community. Are there any questions so far? Very well. Okay, so important to keep in mind during National Gear Up Week is September is a really important month in the federal budget process. It's when the White House and Congress start looking into numbers to start preparing for the next fiscal year's budget process. Raising awareness around this time will really keep Gear Up at top of mind, which is important. Also, NCEP, together with Congressman Fattah, Secretary Duncan, and the U.S. Department of Education in general, have been celebrating National Gear Up Week since at least 2008. But our efforts have grown so much over the last 3 years that we even expanded from one day to a full week so that we could make sure to fit all the celebrations of your achievements into this huge national celebration. So please help us keep the trend going this year. We can't go back. Finally, I'm going to share an endearing and funny story that happened last year. I guess someone replied to my daily report while they were actually intending to forward it to their team. And the mail went something like this: "We suck." At first, I was a little bit surprised, but then, I read the flurry of ideas of everything this team could have done to join the celebrations for National Gear Up Week, and understood that this person didn't mean to write me, but like I said, probably forwarded to their team. Anyway, the moral of the story is, don't get caught off guard, start planning early, and as my sender signed her email, have something cool next year for show. Okay? So Sean, why don't you lead us through some of the inspiration and ideas that we can share with folks for show.
Great. Well, hello, and I hope everyone is having a great day so far. We thought it was important to give you all some thoughts and ideas on what has previously worked and what may work for you during this year's National Gear Up Week. Last year, the Palomar College Gear Up Partnership, located in San Marcos and Vista, California, held a reception that will hopefully turn into an annual event. This reception was covered by the local daily newspaper, the UT San Diego, with this great opening headline. And I quote, "Thousands of North County students will benefit from a $17.5 million federal grant that encourages underprivileged young people to work toward college, but that money will not be available without the hope of local businesses and other partners." So without even giving a quote from us, that was what the newspaper wrote, and we've already hit off two of our most important things. We've got local media and we've got our partners involved already. And if you take a look at the next slide, you'll see another fantastic quote from the local Chamber of Commerce. "This program changes lives. That is exactly what we'd all love to see in our daily newspapers the next day after an event like this. Let's not only get you the attention you're seeking, but the kind of investment you want from your partners." Take a minute to think about planning a reception like this. Who to invite, where to hold it, working on local media, giving yourself enough lead time to make sure everything can come together well. Whether you can get a daily or weekly newspaper or even the local patch site, getting your story and success out there is really imperative. I always like to say to people we work with, if you hold an event and no one knows about it, did it really happen? And granted, you'll never be able to get 100% media coverage in every single event you ever do, but you really want to strive to make sure that happens. Getting an article like this in the local paper is really just, it's a bullseye. Going to the next slide, another great idea that was done last year is the balloon release. You're really not going to get a better visual than this. Each student takes a balloon and ties the balloon with a message listing the student's name, grade, and school, along with their short-term and long-term educational goals. Then those students' balloons are released into the air. On the next slide, you'll see a student, Heather Scott, released her balloon in Antlers, Oklahoma, and the balloon was eventually found in Sumner, Texas, more than 50 miles away. She received a nice letter back from the folks that found it, and that story landed in the local paper. Now, obviously, like I said before, not everyone that sends a balloon is going to get a message back or to be covered in the press. So the event itself needs to be treated as a great opportunity to get your partners and local electeds and congresspeople out to celebrate your event and make sure the press covers this. Now, take a minute to think again about what you're going to need to make this event a hit. Location, timing, invites, reaching out to the media, local electeds, making sure you've got enough things like balloons, helium, note cards, and pens. I understand there was a problem with helium the last time this event was held. So really making sure that you've got everything, all your ducks in a row before you do this event is important. I can't say that enough. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see a thank you note from a student to members of Congress. There are plenty of opportunities here that you can take with us. Inviting your local member of Congress to come to an event where the representative will get to meet students, members, parents of the program, perhaps dropping off thank you cards to the member's district office along with some students. Think about what would be logistically possible, would make the most sense, and what could really present a good visual and a good story. Media are always looking for those two things. If you can tell a good story with this, if you can get a good picture, congressmen, of course, always love to meet with kids, send a good picture for them. Always try to think about what the other side is thinking of before you embark on a project. On the next slide is our dreams wall, and it's very much along the same lines of the balloon release. Perhaps an event that could be the unveiling of the dream wall. You can invite your partners and local electeds, member of Congress, to celebrate the wall. And again, you'll notice a theme here, get the local media to cover the event. All these events, you'll notice that it's hitting on our three things here. We want our local electeds and our congressmen to come. We want our partners and our community to come together for these events. And of course, as always, we want the media to cover them. As always, think with this dream wall, think ahead what you're going to need and give yourself enough time to make sure this is a local, this is a good hit for local media. And that's why we're holding this webinar in April, not 2 months down the line. So you'll be able to think that far ahead about what you'll need to do to accomplish turning this event worthy of being covered by the local press. And I guess I'll go ahead and throw the ball back to you.
Thanks, Sean, for sharing those ideas with us. Important to say is, all these different events range in terms of time commitment and in terms of how much time you have to put into the planning and the execution of the event. So you just have to think about what is most convenient for you and how much time you and your team have available to do these, and just make sure that you're doing something, at least for National Gear Up Week. And like we said, these are just a couple of ideas. We don't want to stigma your creativity, and so feel free to get really creative and go out there and do some awesome stuff for National Gear Up Week. So let's start thinking now about the planning process for National Gear Up Week. If folks would be so kind to share what their thoughts on what we're going to be doing, what they're thinking of doing for National Gear Up Week. Ideally, you should try to complete the following questions, which we will send out in a separate email as a planning template. You want to try to complete these questions in the next couple of weeks, so that you're thinking about the planning and then can jump right into acting as soon as possible. As I walk you through these questions, I would love for folks to be able to participate by sending us their comments as we go through the questions. So the first one is, what will you do to celebrate National Gear Up Week? And just, I won't hold you to it. Just why don't you just share the first thoughts of what comes to mind to celebrate National Gear Up Week this year, and I'll share those with the group that's online as we go forward. Anybody? I'm just going to give you guys a couple of seconds to send those to us in writing. Okay, we got Tawanda Reeves, and she's like, I like the balloon idea. Great. Let us know how we can support you. Linda Morgan from Oklahoma, Eastern Oklahoma State University did that. Rashidi Hamid, they're gonna be doing cards to members of Congress. That's great. Central Washington University is considering having a first Lego competition between our sites next week. That's great. That week. We have Brittany Jones saying the balloon idea. Great. And we have David Salotto from who's telling us that TD Bank in Waterbury will be partnering with them on an event. Great. Then we have Sheila Monis. This is something we didn't share, which this is great. They're going to work with teachers and make them to wear college gear. That's great. Same for Virginia and Gerard, college and career fair. Very well. Anyway, so you see, there's all these very creative and great ideas. We have South Carolina State will host a school-wide assembly recognizing student accomplishments. We have Gear Up Day events with college visits at UNC campuses. This is great. This is great. So, taking that idea that you've just shared with me, what are some of the key goals for the event? How are you going to measure the success of the event? Are you going to measure it by the number of people that participate in the event? Are you going to measure the success of the event by checking the number of news mentions that you were able to get, or is it by the participation from local elected officials? And like I said, these are just suggestions of some of the ways that you could measure the success of your event. But think about that as you go forward. And then, what are the event logistics? Like Sean said, do I have the room to host this reception in? Who's going to be the caterer? I'm going to do the balloon launch. Is there enough helium in my state to host so that I can host my my balloon launch? Logistics are really important, and you should think about them ahead of time so that you're not having to go back into the planning phase while you're trying to execute. So this is a really good exercise to get you started with that planning process. So the fourth question: who will you be inviting? When will you be inviting them, and how will you invite them? And this applies to, maybe you want to invite the college president of the college that you partner with or that you've just recently visited, or you're inviting your members of Congress. Well, all these people have really busy agendas, so you want to make sure that you have your ask out there early enough so that they can't turn you down and say, oh, well, we received your request too late. So early, always, the early bird always gets the worm. So make sure to think about this. Who do you want to invite? When will you send these invites out? and how will you invite them? Fifth, what is your media target list, and how will you reach out to the media? NCEP can help you if you don't know the media in your communities, region, or state. NCEP can help you work on developing a reasonable media list so that you can send out your media advisories and your press releases for your event with enough time. So that's important. And then, like Sean said, if nobody knows that your event happened, it's like it didn't happen. So make sure that in your planning process you have somebody that's responsible for documenting the event at the time of the event, and then sharing that information. And one of the easy ways to share that information is to send it to us, and we'd be very happy to include it in our daily emails, where we're just keeping the drumbeat going and getting people to excited about what's going on in National Gear Up Week, and make sure that it's pictures and videos say 1,000 words. So make sure you do that for the win. And then here's just a couple of points of how NCEP can support you along the way to a successful National Gear Up Week event. Aside from this webinar and the ideas that Sean shared, we want to make sure that you have an awesome event because it's really important to raise the awareness about Gear Up nationally. By the end of this week, we'll be posting the following tools on our website. Well, you'll have the Gear Up logo, which you see down here in the slide. We'll have the planning template, the planning questions template that we'll also send you in the link as a follow-up to this webinar, and the now infamous 5 ideas to celebrate National Gear Up Week. As you might recall, they used to be 10, but we changed those to 5 and decided to include some live examples of how these ideas have been done in the real world to just help you along the way. We'll also be posting a media advisory template that you can send out to media in your community. So you request the coverage of your event. We'll have op-ed guidelines and talking points. We'll have letters to the editor guidelines and talking points, as well as a press release template so that you can report out about your event once it took place. And then, well, your proclamation request letter, your proclamation template, and a general template of a student letter to members of Congress. If there are any, if you've developed your own templates or your own toolkits, please do let us know and share those with us so that we can share them with the rest of the community. This is a crowdsourced event, and we would love to hear your ideas. And also, if there's a specific tool that you think might be useful for the broader community that we haven't thought of and that we haven't developed and that you don't have the time to develop, well, let us know about that, and we'd be very happy to look into it and get that going. So, to be mindful of the time, we just want to see if there are any questions that folks need to get answered to get them on the way to planning a successful Gear Up event. I'm going to take a quick second here to just go through the question log and see if there are any questions that need to be answered. If you haven't sent in any questions, please feel free to send them now so that we can answer them for you. Okay, so we have a question from California, and how do we best engage the media if we don't have the current media outlet contact information? So as I mentioned in my as we were going over the media list, is NCEP can help you put together a list of your local, regional, and state education beat folks, so that you can blast these folks with your media advisory media advisories or press release templates. The question is, are letters the best way to reach Congress and inform them about Gear Up? Sean, what's your take on this?
It's actually not so much really about the letters. I mean, emails are fine, and in-person visits are always the most important part. What is important? Excuse me. What is important is actually getting the member of Congress to come to the event, or perhaps his district director or chief of staff, just to really get a nice event and a visual there with them. So when you're handing over sort of like a stack of cards from students, that's really what's important. When it comes to, for other groups that we talk to, what also would be important would be perhaps members and partners with the group to go visit the member of Congress in his district office, and knowing that all the people there are constituents. That's why originally when I was talking in the thing, there's a lot of different ideas that you can go with this. The students that are writing these cards obviously can't vote yet. So we obviously they're not voters, and it's more to do with the image and the idea of community and presenting a nice visual for the media, and that's why it's really important.
Okay. Thanks for the answer, Sean. So will we have a sort of toolkit available in San Francisco to help with this effort? So thanks, Linda, for that question. Basically, the toolkit will be available online no later than early next week. So if there are any other additional materials that you think we should be adding to that toolkit, please let us know, and we'd be happy to work on them and upload them. We think that starting to plan in San Francisco for National Gear Up Week might be a little bit too late, because you're already in July, and most of the folks are out for August, and then you're coming back September, and it's start of the school year, and there's just so much stuff going on that it makes it hard to start planning then. So the toolkit is basically all these individual documents that you'll be able to download from our website to get you on your way to a successful National Gear Up Week event. Okay, this is a very good question, and I'm going to recur to the audience to answer that. This is a question from Carrie Johnson, and she's asking. He or she is asking, I'm sorry. What are others' best practices for getting seniors to attend National Gear Up Week? Carrie, if we can't answer the question right now with answers from the audience, I would encourage you to post a message on the LinkedIn discussion on our LinkedIn Gear Up LinkedIn group, and I'd be happy to email that to you once we're offline, so that you can post your discussion there and see what others are doing to get seniors to attend National Gear Up Week. But that's a great question. Paula is asking, is September an appropriate time to invite members of Congress to our events, or is it a busy time for them? The congressional schedule is usually published at the beginning of each session. And if I am not mistaken, give me 1 second, I will check the calendar to make sure, to see if, well, my computer is bailing on me. But I will get back to you with that information. But regardless if Congress is in session or not, you should always reach out to your members, because you also have district offices, and if the member can't come, you can have your local district officers come to the event, and they brief the congressman, and it raises as much awareness as having the member there with you as well. So let them decide if they're too busy for your event. Go ahead, Sean.
Right, and just to bump in real quick, so the first week of September, there's the House is not in session, and the 23rd through the 27th, the House is not in session.
Yep.
So otherwise, if there is, if the representative can't come, like Daniel said, getting a higher ranked staff member is really just as important, because it does get that member's attention.
And then a question from David. Do we concentrate on celebrating the entire cohort or focus on an event with a focus group within the cohort? That's really up to you. You could decide to have a dialogue between former Gear students and current Gear students, and that might be a smaller group than your entire cohort. Or you can have, Texas has a lot of these massive events with 10,000 students or more, where they bring in the national or regional speakers to deliver pep talks and pep rallies, and so that's really up to what you think is appropriate for your grant and what you think will get the media's attention in your state or community. How do we get Congress representation at our events since September is such a busy time for Congress? I think that goes with Paula's question earlier. Congress will not be in session during that week. That means that they are in their districts. Working and taking town hall meetings and whatnot, and so inviting them now for an event in September would really be a good idea to get that time block blocked on their agendas, and that just contributes to their agenda. So they'll be thankful for that as well. Does NSIP have any thoughts on how to successfully include parents and family members for Gear Up Week events? So Kristen, I'll just quote some of the events that I remember from last year. Some folks hosted pizza nights with parents and provided financial literacy information. They also had a drop-off in the morning, the student drop-off. They had parents volunteer to give out hot coffee and tea and donuts to parents that were dropping off their kids. So there's a ton of ways that you can include parents and family members to celebrate National Gear Up events. Another idea that comes to mind is getting them to write thank you notes and say, the program has really changed my children's lives, and we're thankful for your support and for Congress for their support. So there's tons of ways to get parents and family members involved and celebrating National Gear Up Week. A question from Heather. Vermont is thinking about engaging each school's larger community. Do you have any examples of local businesses getting involved? I think the example that we just saw in the presentation was the local Chamber of Commerce. I think it was also the San Diego Small Business Administration Office. One of the attendees mentioned that TD Bank in their area is also going to be participating. So ways to get businesses and partners involved is, well, you can ask them to, let's say, if you're hosting a pizza night, have the local pizza parlor sponsor the pizzas for you so that you can share them with so you can feed the parents. You can have, if you're doing a big pep rally, you can have them sponsor the speaker, the speaker fee if there is one, or the hotel costs and the transportation costs for the speaker. There's the possibilities of getting your local businesses involved are really limitless. I hope some of these examples that I just cited are helpful to respond to your question. Okay, so are there any other questions before we move on to just go over some of the big takeaways of this webinar and wrap up? Okay, very well. Well, here are what we think are the most important takeaways. If there's anything that you learned today, please remember that National Gear Up Week is September the 23rd through the 27th. Use the ideas that we just shared with you. There's going to be at least 5 more coming that you're going to be able to download from our website. Improve on them or just make up your own. The only important thing is that you actually make sure that you're part of the celebrations taking place for National Gear Up Week. You don't want to be left out. And remember, whatever you decide to do, planning early will really empower you to do more things and have a greater impact and raise more awareness about Gear Up. So this is critical. I can't emphasize this enough. And before we wrap up, Sean, are there any last comments or thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I would just say, always give yourself more time than not, whether that has to do with getting a location for yourself, getting helium, contacting the media, or getting a member of Congress to come to your event. Like Daniel said earlier, these members' schedules fill up very, very quickly when they're home for the few days that they are, and when they're off from being in Washington, D.C. So getting them on their calendar now is very important. And with the media, don't be discouraged. Keep emailing them, calling them. These people are often very busy, and sometimes they don't get to their email box until a day or two after you send something. So really staying on top of them and making sure that there's this great event that they're otherwise going to miss is very important. So make sure that when you send an email or a phone call to a member of the media, don't let that be the only time you reach out to them. Make sure you stay on top of them and get a response from them, because otherwise
Absolutely.
they might not even see it.
Absolutely. Yep. That was very good advice. Well, on behalf of the NCEP team here in Washington, D.C., we'd like to thank you for taking the time to participate in today's webinar. We'd also like to thank Sean and the England team for sharing their cool ideas and helping us get started on our plans for National Gear Up Week. I'm convinced that the ideas we shared with you today will help you kick off your planning and have a really awesome National Gear Up Week celebration. Please take a moment now to connect with us on Facebook and or follow us on Twitter at EdPartnerships. Feel free to write or call me with any questions, comments, or to share your cool ideas. And again, thank you so much for joining us on the Get Ready for 2013 National Gear Up Week webinar. That's it for today. This concludes our webinar. Thank you very much.